This is Smarter San Diego TV.
The real estate inspection company is in the house and here to educate us about polybutylene plumbing. Please welcome Philippe Heller.
Here he is, Philippe. What's up, my man?
Always good to see you.
Good to see you too, brother. Thanks for bringing such great information to us today. This polybutylene piping thing is something I saw. I believe there was some sort of class action lawsuit, wasn't there? Was that recent?
Yeah, I'll give you a quick history. Back in the late 70s, they came up with a new type of plumbing. They thought, let's get rid of copper, which is expensive and takes a lot of soldering, a lot of expense, and copper's expensive, and you can get a leak anyway. This is when they were putting it in the slabs and you were getting slab leaks. So they came up with a new type of plastic plumbing that was supposed to solve all these issues. Didn't corrode, didn't leak, it was easy to install, it was cheaper for the builders to put in, and so it was used tremendously throughout America, but especially in San Diego, because a lot of the building took place during the 80s and 90s, and so we still see it a lot.
Okay, so this was supposed to be the new best thing, but it turns out that that's not the case.
Yes, what happened, it was developed by Chevron, and what happened is there was a chemical reaction with our water in Southern California. So some of the oxidants, some of the like chlorine, some of the chemicals they put in the water to clean the water affected the plastic connectors. So it's almost like a big drip system, and they fit it together, and the connectors were adversely affected by the chemicals in the water. And what would happen over time is they would develop little cracks, or the system would break altogether and flood the house.
Ah, okay, that's not good. So this happens a lot of times in the connections because they have to use some sort of adhesive there, right? to
No,
hold
they
those connections
didn't.
together.
They didn't use adhesive. So it's not like a PVC system that you might have, but it's more like a drip system if you've ever put that in, where it just fits together with compression fittings. So I brought a sample today. This is from a little bit newer. This one doesn't have the plastic fittings. This one actually has a copper fitting, but you can see how they put the pipe on the fitting and then they crimp it with these crimps here. These are copper crimps. Original versions had aluminum crimps, which also didn't fare well with the heating, the expansion and contraction from hot water. So sometimes it was the crimp that failed, and because this is under pressure, it would just burst apart, and it was like turning a garden hose on in your attic, and of course would flood the house rather quickly. So the tubing was fine, it was always the fittings and the connections that failed. And a lot of people assume that this was recalled, and it was not. There was never actually a government recall of polybutylene plumbing, but it was a class action lawsuit. And there's a lot of misinformation out there about the plumbing and what happened to it and what recourse you have if, in fact, you do have it in your house.
Okay, so let's say I do have it in my house. What should I do? I mean, is am I lucky that something bad hasn't happened yet?
Yes, you're lucky. Now, all plumbing systems can fail. Copper, PEX, old galvanized steel, it can all fail. But this is more prone to failure. So the first thing you should do if you have it is check your pressure in your house, keep it down to like 45 or 50 PSI, because that obviously puts less pressure on the connections. Keep your temperature down too, to about 125, because the hotter the temperature, the more it expands and contracts and it puts more stress on it. And then you really should budget to repipe your house to avoid the flood.
How much does it cost to repipe a house in general? I know it depends on the size.
Yeah, it does depend on the size and construction, because a two-story house makes it much more difficult to run plumbing to the downstairs bathrooms, for example. A one-story house is pretty easy. You go through the attic, go right down the wall, pretty straightforward. It's still going to cost you $8,000 or more on a simple house, and it can go way up from there because you have to cut sheetrock, sometimes open up cabinets, do a lot of cosmetic work in addition to the plumbing. So it's a very expensive thing.
Now, if I'm buying a house, because this is where you typically are doing the most of your work for people who are buying houses.
Correct.
And you're checking it out to make sure that they know exactly what it is they're buying.
Yes.
Now, how do you determine in that process if they've got these polybutylene piping systems or not?
Yes.
Because a lot of times you can't see that stuff with the naked eye.
Well, one of the responsibilities of a home inspector is to identify the plumbing system for the buyer so that you know what you're getting. If it's an older home from the 30s, does it still have galvanized steel plumbing? Terrible, probably rusted through or completely, just terrible, needs to be replaced. Is it copper? Is it a newer PEX? And polybutylene should not be confused with PEX. So if you're in a brand new house and you go up in your attic and you see all this plastic tubing, that's polyethylene, or it's called PEX. That's okay, that's acceptable. There haven't been any problems with it yet, except that we have seen where rodents will chew through it. So that's another whole issue with any kind of plastic plumbing, is that rodents can chew through it. But if you go up in the attic in a newer home, you may see that it's fine. If you have a house that was built from, let's say, early 80s to early 90s, those are the suspect years. As a home inspector, we identify the type of plumbing. Even though this wasn't recalled, it's something that could affect the perceived value of a house. People know that houses with polybutylene are subject to flooding, and therefore it affects their perceived value. And that's why it's so important that a home inspector identifies this. And there are some ways to do it. Of course, you can go in the attic, and sometimes you can visibly see these gray tubes through the attic. Sometimes it's not so easy, especially in a two-story house. Even if you look under a sink, they transition this to a copper stub that sticks out of the wall. So if you look under the sink or behind a toilet, you may simply see a copper pipe sticking out of the wall. That's not conclusive. We've developed a few tests that we use that can confirm the presence or absence of plastic plumbing without having to open the walls, and that's even if you can't see it in the attic.
Really?
Yes.
So if you can't see the plumbing in the attic, you do not need to get into the walls to be able to tell someone if they have this type of piping in their house.
Correct.
Wow. That's got to be your proprietary
It is. It's
system,
a test that we've developed in-house that our inspectors use so that we can confidently tell somebody when they have something other than copper plumbing. And there's a few other telltale signs about how the electrical is hooked up, how it's grounded, but just simply doing a visual and seeing what's exposed isn't always conclusive. So if you have questions about it, you can give us a call. We'll try and walk you through it. Worst case, if you need us to come out there. If you're going to be selling a home, this is something that can derail a sale almost immediately, because either you're going to be asked for a concession to repipe the house, or the buyer's going to walk away because they don't want to deal with this stuff.
Wow.
Yep.
Yeah, it's crazy. Well, I mean, it's great that you can be able to tell that stuff, because, correct me if I'm wrong, but these types of flood incidents can happen whether you're home or not. In other words, whether you've turned on the faucet or not, because there's pressure always on these pipes, isn't there?
As a matter of fact, when you're away, which is kind of Murphy's Law of when a lot of floods do occur, it's because your water heater, if you have a traditional tank water heater, it's still keeping that water hot, and pressure actually builds over time because it is never released. You're never turning on a faucet to relieve that pressure. So when you're gone, it's not the act of turning on or off a faucet that causes it. It can be the pressure that builds up in the system while you're away. That's why I said you want to keep your pressure regulated very low, especially if you have polybutylene.
So if you do have it, it may not be the end of the world, but it's something that you need to be aware of. You need to know what you're risking, and you probably need to get some kind of an estimate on what it would cost to go ahead and fix those pipes, because if you have a flood situation, that is going to have additional costs on top of the fact that you're now going to have to replace.
Yeah, and most homeowners insurance companies will cover that damage. They may not come in and repipe your whole house, so it's still something that you're going to have to deal with at some point. That's a little bit out of our scope of expertise. Coming at it from a buyer or a seller, it's something you need to know, because it is something that does play a role in the purchase of a house.
And it's specifically here in San Diego where we're seeing the issue because of the type of water that we have.
Southern California, yes, and it's all over San Diego, from Carmel Mountain Ranch to Ramona to some of the older parts of Rancho Bernardo. Like I said, if you have a house built from the early 80s to the early 90s and it's a tract house, usually custom houses don't have it, but if it was, built in a large development, there's a high probability that your house was built with polybutylene.
And this is something that you absolutely need to know. Great
Absolutely.
stuff. Philippe Heller, appreciate your time, man.
Always
You're
a
amazing. Stick around for more Smarter San Diego TV, where we guarantee to make you smarter than everyone else. Commercial free.
If you love wine, beer, and food, we have the perfect place for you to go. Please welcome from the Avenue Home Collective, Melissa Sofia, and her special guest, the CFO and co-founder of the Abnormal Company, Elvin Lai.
All right. She's back. Melissa Sofia is here. We've got a special guest today.
I did. I can't help but come back. It's the best show ever. This is my friend Elvin, and he is with the Abnormal Company. So I'm abnormally out of suit today, which I'm really excited about, by the way.
I think it looks good. I like the flowery look.
Thanks.
It's good. You're a flower and you're wearing flowers. Alvin, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
That's the Abnormal Beer Company?
Yeah. So Abnormal Company is the parent company for the Cork Restaurant, Rancho Bernardo,
Okay.
Abnormal Beer Company, and Abnormal Wine Company. So
Wow.
we're a wine brewery restaurant.
Wow.
The first ever.
The first ever winery, brewery, restaurant. Yeah. How come someone didn't think about that before, to put all such great things like that together?
I don't know, but
License-wise, it's difficult.
he doesn't back down from difficulty. So one thing I love and respect about this guy, but you know, his Cork and Craft. I mean, my husband, if he had it his way, we would go there literally 3 or 4 times a week.
And this is the one that has all of the above, right?
It does.
In Rancho Bernardo.
It does.
Okay, so first of all, what made you think, you know what, we're not just going to do a brewery restaurant, we're going to have a winery too? I mean, where did that come from?
So the two original founders, Matt Deloach and James Malone, they went to Poway High School. I went to high school with them. They brought me on board a year later. They started off as a micro winery first in 2012, and then that evolved into a kitchen, which evolved into having a brewery. So it was a really natural progression. It wasn't, I would love to say, yes, we thought about this from the very beginning and this is how it happened. No, it was just an evolution of just how things happened.
Well, organic stuff like that is always good because that means that there's a reason for it. You're not, there's no expectation. You're doing things based on what is needed.
Yep.
And what people want. And I could totally see that because there's sometimes I'm in a wine mood. Sometimes I'm in a beer mood.
Yep.
I have the hardest time when I head over there picking between if I'm going to drink wine or a beer. Their choices are stellar.
What kind of wines do you specialize in? Any like red or whites, or do you have all of the above? Or?
No, so as a micro winery, we get to source our grapes from all over the world. So from Napa Valley, Washington, Spain, Argentina, Australia. So we really source from everywhere. But we, we have a sommelier on staff all the time. So we have other wineries' wines too to really compensate our wines. But as a winery, we really want to showcase the approachability of our wine, and especially with our beer too. So like you'll have here, approachability and tasteability is really the first things that we want to make with any of our products, food, wine, or beer.
So for someone like me who doesn't know a whole lot about this, sommelier is not someone from Somalia.
No, correct. Yes.
Wow.
Necessarily.
It could be. It could be. Sommelier would be a master of wine. So there's different degrees.
Wine master.
Correct. Different degrees of that. So level 4 would be like, 3 or 4 would be like a master somm, but like 1 or 2 would just be you're educated in where the wines are from. But if you're like a 3, you can smell the wine and know what dirt it came from.
Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty
That's
intense.
crazy.
So sommelier is like a black belt of wine.
Yes.
Nice.
I always feel like I'm at that level, just a few glasses down.
Absolutely. And
everything tastes great.
we tell everybody that it's the most important thing is, do you like it? If you don't like it, then it's not for you. If you like it, then it's perfect for you.
That's awesome. But their beers are amazing too. There's never a time where I can't choose between 2 or 3 amazing beers. And again, we'll bring up my husband, but he is obsessed. So I'm really excited to see what this. So what do you have today?
So this is our M2 bottle. It sold out in 30 seconds. We had about 45,000 unique impressions on our website at 12 o'clock on a Tuesday. And so it's
Look at this.
It's a oatmeal imperial stout that has toasted coconuts,
Doesn't
cocoa
mess
nibs,
around.
coffee.
Cacao nibs.
Yep.
Nice.
Cacao.
Oh yeah, I can smell the cacao nibs.
Those are big glasses.
I love stouts. This is like this. So is this nitrous?
Cheers.
It's not. It's CO2. Cheers.
It is.
It's CO2 in this.
Okay.
But it's the thick body of the oatmeal stout is going to make it really the finer bubbles.
Now with the beer, we don't need to let it air out or
Nope.
anything like that.
Nope.
We can just get right to it, right?
Get right to it. Oh, that's so good.
Isn't that amazing?
What?
So this.
Kidding me?
This,
Now I'm really sad I wasn't part of that 30-second set.
So
Oh my
this
God,
bottle,
this is
that bottle doesn't have a
amazing.
label on it.
Yeah, it's part of our private reserve because we're completely sold out.
You kept a few bottles
Correct.
back
Yep.
for the inside guys.
In the inside guys, yeah.
Wow,
we
I
have to
feel
be
very.
the inside guys.
I think
today.
this is like $100 a sip.
I
that
know,
we're
for
using
sure.
right now because this is there's none of it left.
Yeah,
Are you
we-
making more?
We're making more. So the next batch that's come out, this was the M2, comes M3. It was actually made for the anniversary for Moster Coffee, which is in Carmel Mountain. So this is a
so good.
collaboration with them. So the M3, they're having their anniversary at the Cork and Craft on December 12th. So the 3-year anniversary for Moster Coffee. We'll have this available at that place.
I love that you collaborate with them, and that's one of the best things about San Diego and how we're constantly collaborating.
Correct.
Have you ever had Mostra?
No,
Such amazing coffee.
really.
Yes.
Moster Coffee.
So you guys have the spot in Rancho Bernardo.
Correct.
So is it becoming a destination now because we're this beer thing is going crazy in San Diego. People are taking tours and all that. Is that going to become a destination for people to come to, or are you guys going to expand and open other locations?
So we are looking at other locations right now. Actually, we have a few landlords that are asking us to open up other locations in their positions. But our goal is really to build out what we currently have, the brewery to its fullest capacity. We just did an expansion from 80 barrels to 440 barrels of production. Each barrel is 2 kegs, so we're roughly about 5,000 barrels or 10,000 kegs a year in production right now. Yeah.
That's a lot of beer.
Yeah, it's a lot. Abnormal is the fastest growing brewery that San Diego. One of.
Yeah,
Absolutely. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to bring him on. It's the craft beer industry has become such a staple in San Diego over the last couple of years, and we're now the craft beer capital of America. We're like the Napa Valley of beer.
Yeah.
Is what people are saying. So, it's brought a lot of revenue into San Diego. It's brought a lot of attention, especially, the millennial generation. Adulting 101. We just got to bring it up. We just have to bring it
Your
up.
radio show, Adulting 101,
This
you talk
is.
about this, yes.
And, it really is affecting some of the value in San Diego. It's just another reason to move to San Diego, to visit San Diego. And it's bringing more tourism to our beautiful city, and it's just another reason for us to love San Diego.
Yeah, another reason when you leave why you want to come back.
Exactly.
Which is, it's just sort of piling the value on. Yeah. Every time I go somewhere else, coming home, when I lived in Missouri, it sucked. Leaving vacation to go home, that was terrible. I just came back from New York yesterday, and I was excited to come back home. But that's the thing about San Diego. We have so many things. It's not just the weather. It's not just the beaches. It's not just all of the outdoor activities that you can participate in on a daily basis, but it's cool stuff like this that keeps coming and more, like the breweries. We have great wine now, Temecula Valley, things, great
Absolutely.
wine right there. All those things are adding up to, I think, helping maintain the momentum that we have from an influx standpoint, which is obviously affecting real estate in a positive way.
Absolutely. We are on every hottest city to live in list. So, thank you for that.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the big things too is the brewery industry has really become the fourth pillar of the San Diego economy. So as the more breweries come about, the more tourism will come about, the more economic, the more drivers, exports. I mean, we just shipped our first 40-foot container to Korea.
Seriously?
Yeah. So actually not just, it was in October, right? But we have our second order to go to Korea right now. So San Diego has become a huge export for beer. So we're really another economic driver for San Diego.
That's so cool. How many people work for you guys?
So we have 42 employees, restaurant, brewery, winery staff total.
So you're running a really efficient shop then.
We're trying.
Yeah.
I mean, as you all know, the restaurant industry is a very, very tough industry, especially with the new rules and regulations that are coming about. It's very, very difficult to have a restaurant. We're lucky to have a winery and a brewery attached to it, which helps us weather the storm a little better. But most restaurants are going to have a tough time here come soon.
Yeah.
What I love about one of the things that you do is they offer these really neat dinners with pairings. Did you guys just do one?
We just did one last night with Scratch Winery. So we pair up with a winery and another chef from another restaurant. So we do once a quarter a dinner pairing. We've actually been nominated as the best restaurant for beer pairing dinners in San Diego, San Diego County. So you can come, just check out abnormalbeer.com or Abnormal Beer Co. You'll see tickets there for sale for any beer pairing dinners that we have.
That's awesome.
And wine pairings. The one yesterday was a huge success with Scratch Winery. It's a great winery, really small winery. So we're looking for those smaller wineries that really have no exposure.
I think we know what we're gonna do next.
Yeah.
After our helicopter ride.
We should definitely do that.
Absolutely.
Great stuff. Thanks for coming today. And
Absolutely.
Thanks for the beer.
You're very welcome.
I feel like I need to do a special send-off here.
Yes.
Like,
Good.
chug?
Okay, let's do it.
Should we do that?
Why not?
This is thick stuff.
All right. You ready?
Cheers. Yeah.
Cheers. Cheers. Thank you very much.
Cheers. Ooh, that's good.
All right.
High five.
Best episode ever. Stick around for more Smarter San Diego TV, where we guarantee to make you smarter than everyone else, commercial free. Any more of that left?
Yeah.
Settling finances in a divorce can be a very difficult process, so our next guests are here to help. Please welcome real estate expert Bryan Devore and his guest, certified divorce financial analyst, Carlie Headapohl.
And he's back. Yes. Mr. Devore.
Yeah, how you doing?
What's up, my friend?
I'm doing great.
Great to have you here. You brought a special guest today.
I did.
Tell us about her.
Very excited. So, on one of your shows in the past, I talked about Divorce Home Solutions, which is a program that my friend Jamie Shapiro and I put together to help people who are going through divorce with every aspect of the home, whether it be they want to keep the home, they want to sell the home, help them with that, help them with the move, packing, unpacking, etc. And throughout the process of setting up this program, we've had the good opportunity to meet some wonderful professionals who help people going through divorce. Carlie is one of those fine people, and she's a certified divorce financial analyst, which I had never heard of before until we met. And so I was excited to bring her on to talk about what she does.
Carlie, thanks for coming today.
Thank you.
In a divorce, there's obviously a lot of financial implications. So I think the difficult part for most people is that they're just going to sort of look to their attorney for advice, and the attorney has a specific objective that relates to, the law and, creating essentially the Bible for the relationship going forward, which is the marriage settlement agreement, but not necessarily do they understand or have the wherewithal to know what to do with the finances.
Right.
Is that, my guess is that's where you kind of fit into the equation?
Yeah, I fit in because for a lot of people, in the divorce financial settlement will be the largest financial transaction of their life. And a lot of times, a lot of emotion gets mixed in with the decision making related to their settlement. And it helps to, one of my themes is let's try to keep as much money in your family as possible. And you're entering into this, what I call, it's like going to a foreign country, I call it divorce land, where you don't know the language and you don't know the laws. And so you need the right tools for the job. So you need legal advice, you need financial support, sometimes you need real estate professionals to get involved to help identify options that you have in your divorce settlement. Sometimes you need a tax expert. So you need to get the right tools for the job. That ultimately will help reduce the overall cost of your divorce. That would be the goal.
Yeah, and a lot of times what we see is people end up fighting over something that's worth $500,
Yes.
and they spend $10,000 in legal fees. That's a big issue.
That's a big
for a lot
issue,
of
and I
people.
just hate seeing that happen. I'm just frugal by nature, and when I see that, I try to tell people, you always have to do that cost-benefit analysis. It doesn't make sense to spend more fighting over something than it's worth, and try to focus on the net dollars, maximizing those net dollars in your pocket.
Yeah,
So-
in most cases, if you go through and you just say, hey, all right, what are the demands from the other side? And you look at it and you just, usually, in most cases, if you just say, okay, that's probably the cheapest thing that you can do.
Right.
Unless they're being outrageous.
Right.
In most cases, if you can just say, okay, then you will save yourself so much mind, so much heartache.
Yeah, conflict's expensive.
Totally, especially in this situation. And this is why I think what you're doing, Bryan, is so cool with Divorce Home Solutions, because divorce is one of those things that, when you're in it, it consumes you. Once you're out of it, or if someone is not in it or not hearing about it, then it's so someone else's problem. It's so something that could never happen to you.
Right.
But these days it seems like, and I think this just happened, where the number of marriages that end in divorce just eclipsed 50%. For a long time it was in the 40s, and then the high 40s, and then it got around 50, and now it's actually over 50. So more than half of people who get married are getting divorced, and it's becoming a common thing.
Right.
But it's still not any less complex than it was when people rarely did it.
And when you're in the middle of a divorce, and I know this from experience too, you're being asked to make the largest financial decisions of your life in a situation that is the most stressful situation of your life. And you can't make good, sound decisions when you're under stress. And that's one of the reasons why I like what Carlie does. And she has great tools to help people keep the money in the family, because you can't really see it because you have other issues going on, emotional issues involved. You can't really see the forest for the trees. You're going to want to look back on it and say, okay, we did the right thing, if you can.
Carlie, do you basically just draw a diagram? It's like, this is your money, okay? This is your money, this is his money. These are your attorney's pockets. And this is your money pouring into their pockets.
Right. Yeah.
Well, it's not just attorney's pockets. There's so many other people that get involved in the divorce, and it's extremely costly. And so it's really just trying to say, hey, let's do the cost-benefit analysis. How is this going to actually advance your settlement negotiation? And are you going to end up with more dollars after you spend all this money chasing this issue, if you will? And the problem with divorce is there really are no do-overs. So if you make all these decisions driven by emotion, and a few years down the line you go, oh, why didn't anyone tell me about taxes? Or why didn't anyone explain this to me? You can't go back and redo it.
Right.
So you really do want to get it right as best you can
Well,
during the
crucial.
process, and trying to. So I act kind of as that third party, try to take the emotion out of the decisions. Or if you're going to make a decision driven by emotion, at least understand the implications. What are the pros and cons? What are the implications to you, not just today, but maybe 3 years down the road, 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road? Thinking further ahead so that you have, I call it eyes wide open decision making.
It's true, and when I say that that marriage settlement agreement is the Bible for your relationship moving forward, it really is. That becomes the textbook that you refer to for all of the laws of your relationship. So it's really, really important to take a look at it. And you're right, there are other things involved, and people sometimes will overpromise a little bit. I know there's one situation recently where I've been talking to someone who she, in the marriage settlement agreement, agreed to give her husband half of the supposed equity that there was in the house.
Right.
And they put the number out there. Instead of saying half of whatever it sells for minus the expenses, which is what they should have done, instead she said, oh, well, this is what it's worth. Here's what we owe. We'll give you half of that.
Yeah.
Didn't think about cost of sale. Didn't think about market fluctuations. Didn't think about, is the value even correct?
And she had no one really guiding her.
Oh, so she put the
decision.
actual number.
Put the number in.
Wow.
$95,000.
And her attorney let her do that, huh?
That's what I'm saying. So the attorneys don't necessarily know. They go, oh, okay, that's half. Sure, sounds good. Check that off the list. I got 90 other things I'm working on over here.
Right.
Now what we're finding out is if she sells it at market value, she should get just definitely enough to pay him his 95, but she's going to get very little.
Oh.
So he's getting most all the equity.
He's getting almost all the equity.
Right.
Because the way that what they had promised in that agreement, they overpromised.
Well, and it's the devil's in the details. I mean, it does matter how these things are written, and so that was a classic example of the intent was we're going to split the equity.
Fair, yeah.
But somehow it ended up that a dollar amount was assigned to that, and it's a hypothetical until the house sells. Nobody
and that's why I like
knows.
having someone like Carlie involved, even in our situation. You know, in what I do. People are deciding if they're going to keep the house or sell the house. And Carlie said about half the people keep it, half the people sell it. But how many of those people, really go through the details and really understand it and meet with someone like Carlie who can say, what about this? Have you thought about this? And how is you keeping the house going to affect your ability to fund your kids' college? Maybe it won't. They really need to understand it. So, like you said, it's the Bible. It's what is always referred back to, and you want to do it right the first time.
Yeah, you got to get that playbook.
Because there are no do-overs.
Yeah, you can't go back and redo the MSA. Brian, real quick on Divorce Home Solutions. I mean, are most of the people who are coming to you, is it after they've gotten an attorney and they realize the attorney's not necessarily handling all the other details that you guys handle, and then they come to you, or do people come to you prior to engaging in an attorney?
It's kind of both. We get people in a lot of different ways. We started a support group, which is not, so we have the business of divorce, but we also have the emotional part too. We started a support group that no one else is doing. We have 45 people who are going. and they're just starting the process. So they may come to us when they're just beginning the process. We get people who have already gone to the mediator, and the mediator is going to say, okay, we have some, I'm working with some clients who need to sell their home. If Carlie has someone, we'll work with mortgage people as well. So it's kind of the whole gamut of the divorce process. The earlier they get to us, the better. And we're going to make sure that if they come to us first, but they should probably see her first, we're going to take them there and make sure it's a closed loop and get the whole team on board to help them.
Well, one of the biggest problems with the home is such an emotional asset for people. If you can get them in front of Divorce Home Solutions, there's a lot of inertia built in because it's a huge change. Just sometimes people have lived in their homes for 10, 20, 30 years. It's so overwhelming, just the thought of trying to move and pack up and do all that, knowing that there's help out there with that process I think can help people move forward with the decision, maybe to sell the house.
Unclog
because they
brain.
just can't see, it's opaque. That whole future is so opaque, and it's such a big issue and so emotional that even just, hey, there's resources out there to help you
And it's not
get
just
through that process of
and
the
move
physical
and unpack
move.
and decorate.
Yeah.
Because these people don't want to have to deal with that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's just overwhelming.
Yeah, well, you guys are doing a great thing. I really appreciate what you're
Thank
doing in
you.
the community.
Thank
Thank you so
you.
much for your time
Really
today.
appreciate
Absolutely.
having
Great
us.
stuff. Stick around for more Smarter San Diego TV, where we guarantee to make you smarter than everyone else. Commercial free.
Our next guest will discuss everything homeowners need to know about going solar. Please welcome our breakdancing realtor, Anthony Manzon, and his guest from Sunrun Solar, Ryan Turner.
There you are. What's up, fellas?
What is up?
Breakdancing realtors here. Ryan Turner, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Solar, big topic out there in San Diego. A lot of people have solar here. We got great sun, great opportunity, right, to use that power and to save money. So obviously, solar is a big thing here in San Diego, and it should be. But the question and the trouble comes in sometimes when people are selling their home. So I'd like to identify, first of all, Ryan, if there's a way that we can avoid that issue in the first place, and if we're already in this situation, what can we do from here? Because Anthony, I know you've talked about in the past, in some situations, people with the wrong solar programs have a hard time selling their homes, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So Ryan, how do we fix that?
I think the best way to fix that is just in the very beginning, choose a reputable company and a consultant that comes along with that company that's going to educate the homeowner and talk about all the options and lay them all out for the homeowner. So also find out what are the future plans with the home. Is the home planning on changing hands in the next 2-3 years, or is it going to stay with this homeowner long term? And with all that information, a good consultant would be able to guide that homeowner into the right program that's going to protect them from any pitfalls potentially that would lead up to selling the home.
Are there some programs that are more problematic than others?
Potentially, yeah. So let's
Depending
say,
on the plan, right? I mean, some are problematic if they're thinking about selling soon, maybe 1 to 2 years, but some are better if you're staying long term, right? So.
Yeah, I mean, if you're looking to buy a system outright, whether you're financing it or investing money into it. If you're investing money, there's definitely a return time on that investment. So you don't want to invest into a solar system and then turn around and sell immediately. So if you're planning on staying in the home, long term, say, 7, 8 or more years, then investing into a solar system would be a good plan. At the same time, if you're planning on getting rid of the home or moving on to a bigger home within a shorter period of time, then a solar lease would be very beneficial because you can take advantage of controlling your home's energy costs immediately and start saving some money and then transfer those benefits to the next homeowner very easily. So
That seems to be the trouble, though, for a lot of people, right, is that the transfer of the benefits, the transfer of the lease. is there a certain type of lease that's more transferable than other types of leases or anything like that? Because I've heard about different programs, like the one that keeps coming up, the HERO program. I keep hearing that, the HERO program.
Y-Green.
It's a big issue. It's so hard to transfer or get other people to qualify for it. So is there some differences between those, or ones that people should pay more attention to?
Absolutely. I know Anthony's had a couple of transactions pop up recently with a Y-Green program that's given him some difficulties, securing a home buyer because certain lenders will not accept the transfer of that Y-Green program. But I don't want to single out any one particular program to completely stay away from. But as far as a solar lease is concerned, those are 99.7% transferable with every transaction, and they're just it's a good way to go about getting solar if you plan on selling the home with a short amount of time. But
what about buying it all up front versus the lease? Is there an advantage to that, or are the rates so low on these leases that it just doesn't make sense?
No, I mean, there are definitely advantages, in my opinion, to buying the system all up front. Over a longer period of time, you're going to recoup your costs and come out a lot further ahead than if you were to just, get a lease or pay the monthly payments for a lease. Now, there's a whole nother program out there that a lot of people aren't aware of. Sunrun is one of the few companies that offers it, and it's a prepaid lease. And that is another great way to go about going solar if you have the resources to invest into a solar system. So
a prepaid lease.
Mm-hmm.
Is that as much as you can divulge? Or is it just too many details?
I mean, very simply put, you're buying 20 years worth of electricity up front at a discount. So instead of a monthly lease where you put no money into it whatsoever, you're actually investing money up front to get a much more of a discount on your energy over a 20-year period of time. And the company that is offering that prepaid lease is going to take care of the system for the next 20 years, all aspects of it.
That makes sense because electrical costs, they keep going up almost every year, right? So when you pay 20 years up front, you're getting it at a discount and you're locking in that price, right?
Absolutely.
Okay,
yeah.
Cool, that makes sense, yeah. If you have the money for it, you might as well lock it in because who knows where electrical costs will go, just like you don't know where gas prices are going to go,
Yeah, there's definitely be a trend.
Well, there's definitely, there's a trend.
It's going up.
It's not going to go down, that's for sure.
I don't see them lowering the cost anytime soon.
Right.
So let's talk about people who are already here. They already have the system. They're considering selling their home. Any advice, Anthony, for people who they've got solar? They're like, okay, we want to sell the home. We're watching the segment. We're going, shoot, is the solar going to kill our deal? Mm-hmm. How can you help them through that?
Great question. I would say if you do have solar in your property now, the most important thing is, number one, understanding what your program is and how you can transfer your property or sell your property. So number one, marketing it the correct way. Because I've seen sometimes on the multiple listing service, in the confidential remarks will say solar panel is leased. And then once you get into escrow, you find out it's actually not leased. And that kind of changes everything. Let's say, for instance, they think it's financed and it's under the Y-Green program. Sometimes the people giving the information don't always give the right information because as agents, you just take the information the seller gives you because you weren't there for that consultation when they got it. You would assume that the seller knew enough information so that when you say, you know what, is your solar panel leased or financed, they at least have enough information to give you, but sometimes it's not always correct. So I would say, number one, get the contract. If you're a seller thinking about selling, have your contract on hand so the agent can review it. The agent is probably going to have a lot of questions because this is a new thing in today's market. How is solar panels, affecting property owners? So that you can actually reach out to the companies and understand the product you're trying to sell. Because in addition to selling this house, just like you want to understand, the ins and outs of the house, you have to be able to sell the solar panel as well and understand the benefits and that kind of stuff so that the new buyer can understand it. Because keep in mind, the buyer's also taking the word of you now who took the word from the seller. So things get lost in translation. And you have to understand what you're selling at that point. So just do as much information as possible and make sure you have a really good solar consultant like this guy. This is my solar guy. Like whenever I have questions, the best guy in solar. I gotta tell you that. He knows everything about solar. That's why I brought him on today.
That's awesome.
Any questions about real estate? I'm going to Anthony.
Yeah, no, we've got it. We definitely have those bases covered, and I think it's awesome because it is a big hot topic here, and a lot of people have solar, and a lot of people who have solar haven't thought about, they haven't even crossed their mind that solar was going to potentially cause a problem when they went to sell the home, because it's great, it's solar, it's green, it saves us money, it does this, it does that. Why wouldn't the next person buying it want that on there? Why wouldn't they? And they just don't, they don't think about it until it gets to the point of selling, and then you go, okay, now what are buyers looking for?
Yeah, and here's one thing to bring up also is that, just like a swimming pool, solar has a value on it determined by the buyer. Like if you put a $50,000 swimming pool in a house, the value of the house doesn't go up $50,000 because you put a $50,000 pool in. The value is determined by the buyer. So you might put on a $30,000 solar system, but the buyer coming in buying it may not see that as worth $30,000, so they're not going to put that on top of the price. Some sellers I'm talking with are thinking that's really how it works, and that's not how it works, So.
Yeah, unfortunately, that is not how it works. There's very few things that will translate 100%.
Yeah, equal value.
Yeah, just very, very few things in the world that will do that. And I wouldn't say that buying solar is like buying a car. It's not to that degree, but at the same time, it is a long-term investment. It has to be looked at that way, and a lot of people who are buying a house won't necessarily see it that way immediately. And once they get in there and they start living there and they start paying the bill every month for the electric, then they'll get it. But at that moment where they're walking through the house and deciding that this is where they want to put their stuff, they're not there yet. So that's the challenge, I think, for you as the agent who's trying to sell the house is, how do I get them to see that value today, even though they're not going to live it for months from now?
Yeah, and that's actually a great thing you brought up too, because one thing you can do as a seller, just going back to our previous question, is if you can have your electrical bill before you put on the solar panels and then have your bill after the solar panels, showing the value up front, you can even upload that into the multiple listing service so that buyers can see that they're definitely getting value from the solar panels. Because, I think we all agree it's a good thing for the house, it's a good thing for the earth, it's a good thing for the sun, and it's good all around. It's just the buyers have to understand it that way.
So yeah, what I would add to that, Anthony, is at Sunrun we have a dedicated sale transfer department inside our customer care department that helps homeowners and professionals like yourself with that transaction, that sale of the property, and or say a refinance, because we haven't even gotten into that as well. But another pitfall potentially could be the refinance of that property and making sure you have all the correct information to your proper professionals so they can perform the job they need to do, because it's very easy, but it's nice to have a resource to go to gain all the information. So that's what Sunrun has. So
perfect, fantastic stuff, Anthony. Thank you so much for bringing Ryan on today. Ryan, thank you so much for coming. Really
a pleasure.
Thanks
for having us.
Stick around for more Smarter San Diego TV, where we guarantee to make you smarter than everyone else. Commercial free.
Will there be a Trump reaction on the San Diego real estate market? Our next guest is here to share her expertise. Please welcome back the champ, Elizabeth Story.
There she is, the champ. Hi. In the house, looking fresh. How are you doing, Diane?
Nice to see you.
Good to see you again. So here we are. President Trump will be inaugurated in early January or late January, and everyone's who's been waiting. There's been people who are waiting to sell homes, to buy homes.
Yes.
Because of the election.
Right.
This was something I don't think anyone saw coming, but yet people were still not taking action.
Yes.
So what is the effect of a Trump presidency on San Diego real estate?
Well, the good news for everyone who already owns real estate is that so does Mr. Trump. And he doesn't want to see his values go down, and so he doesn't want to see your values go down either. So I don't plan on seeing any policies or effects that drive prices down. We might have a more modest gains in the first year while people figure out what we're figuring out that he's figuring out. But I don't expect it to have a really negative impact in San Diego County. There is some speculation that rates might go up. And then that gets tricky because it affects buyers' ability to buy and what their payment is. So I put together some numbers to kind of predict what would happen if rates go up. A 1% rate increase at around $650,000 with 20% down would be about a payment difference of $250 a month. So that affects what people can buy.
If one full percentage point up, which a lot of people are expecting rates to go up at some point, whether it would happen under Trump presidency or not is hard to say.
Right.
But one thing that we do know, and this is my sort of personal speculation about the situation, we do know that what Trump is known for is construction. And one of the things that he's been very loud about in the past is the regulations and the process of going through permitting and all the things that have to be done that are regulations from the government to do construction that make construction costs go up significantly. So if some of those things, which he can directly affect his own personal pen, he can go in there and not enforce a lot of those things. If that were the case, then construction costs could go down a lot.
Right.
So that's one potential benefit I think we might see. Now, we don't have a lot of new construction here in San Diego, unfortunately. We need more new construction here. But for the new construction that is going on or that is going to happen in the next 5-10 years, if the costs go down, then maybe that could get passed on to the consumer potentially and lower prices for new stuff.
Well, and that doesn't just affect like new construction per se, like a whole new master plan community. It also affects all this infill. You know, we talked about infill during the last time on the show for people who are not quite sure what that is. It's, you know, there's a house that's in a great location, but it's 100 years old and it's falling down and needs updating. You bulldoze it and you start again. That's going to be really, really super popular in the next decade or more in San Diego County because the location, you can't change it, you won't change it, it's beautiful. But as we run out of properties and new construction or people want to continue revitalizing all these neighborhoods around the county, then infill developments get much bigger, remodels too, renovations too. And as somebody who works specifically in that space, it is cumbersome. And it is expensive, and it is time-consuming to deal with all of the government regulations. Like, for example, I had this one client who he just wanted to put a hole in his backyard, and $20,000 later, he's like, I just couldn't do it anymore because I couldn't finish the project that I wanted to do in my own house that I already own on my own soil because the fees are just so cumbersome. So it would be nice to see a little bit of easing on some of the overlays and regulations that we have.
Yeah, it seems like that's a place where there's a lot of waste.
Yes.
And that cost gets passed down to the eventual home buyer.
Right.
I mean, just there's no way around that.
Right.
So to think that, oh, well, the rich construction companies are paying that bill, no, they're not. I mean,
They're
they're fronting the bill, but they're passing it right along to you. So I think that's one place where if we're going to see the Trump effect, if you will, in housing, whether we see it much in San Diego or not, I think it would probably be in that realm.
Right.
But there are also people who I think are going to be now even more cautious, do you think? Maybe people who are not so pro-Trump. They think he's going to bring the end of the world to, you know, the United States of America. Do you think those people will now be even more hesitant to make a move?
I think it depends on whether you're selling or buying. If you're selling and you're worried about Trump, then you're going to want to pull the cord, right? But if you're buying and you're worried about Trump, you're not really sure where to go. And that's why I think this first year and this first 6 months of his presidency, it's really going to be hard to predict, like what people are going to do, what buyers are going to do, and how they're going to react to his presidency. And I think we're going to start finding out really quickly because there's already a lot of articles going around about, you know, who he's slating for his cabinet and some of the policies that he wants to put in place. So come January, it's going to be really interesting to see what buyers who have been sitting on the fence are going to do. But again, if there is news that rates are going to go up, then obviously you're going to want to pull the trigger before they do because it's going to affect your ability to purchase.
Yep, and same thing on the sell side too, with potential buyers, especially in higher price ranges.
Exactly.
You know, where those interest rates really make a big difference. Have you got any of the Canada calls yet? Any of the fleers? Have they been calling?
You know, I got to tell you, I kind of pride myself on not being a super cheesy car chasing agent, and it's really worked well for me, thank God. And the morning after, I must have seen 20 different agents with the cheesy, I'll sell your house if you want to move to Canada. I'm not that girl. But if you do want to, I will. But no, I haven't had anyone call me saying that
No Canada calls?
But I actually had one friend who moved out of the country. Not even kidding you.
Already happened?
Yeah, no, he's gone.
Wow.
He's wealthy. I'm going to stay here.
You're going to stick it out?
Fight the good fight.
I'm going to stick it out. You know, San Diego, I think, is still just fine, no matter who's the president. You can't there's things, macro issues here in San Diego that you just can't change. Yeah. That's why I think if he is able to help reduce the regulations and the sort of the barriers to construction, we could see a lot more of the inventory that we really need come to San Diego because, I mean, we desperately need it.
And, you know, I want to go back to what you said about how a lot of people think, oh, it's these big contractors who are paying the bill for all of these fees. It's not. They're the ones that are bringing the finished product to you. And whatever they can build the finished product for is whatever they're bringing it to you. So the direct impact is always going to be on the consumer when it's expensive to build. And so either builders don't build because they can't afford it and they can't turn a good profit, or they have to sell it to you higher. Neither one of those are really good options for the consumer. So it definitely affects everyone in the county when we talk about how difficult it is to build and how much regulations there are involved.
Yeah, I don't know if there's one single other thing that could be more impactful to helping make housing more affordable in San Diego, because demand is already through the roof.
Right.
Supply is already minuscule.
Right.
What else could be done possibly to help? Rates are already as low as they could possibly
Right.
be. I mean, I just don't see San Diego housing getting cheaper unless there were some big sweeping overhaul in the regulations. And I'm not saying he is going to do it or that it's even possible to be done.
Right.
But if there were one thing that I could see a President Trump doing, because he's a construction guy and he's been very loud and complaining about these fees and the costs to construct, and is to do something about that. So I think it would be a good thing. And who knows? We'll just have to wait and see, I suppose.
And that will be a micro market discussion, which I've talked about that term a lot on here before too. For example, going back to the micro markets in Carlsbad.
The mini suburbs?
The teeny tiny suburbs.
Those little houses that are out there?
So somewhere where there's going to be a huge build out, a huge master plan community, that's going to actually bring some of the values down or flat in the directly surrounding community. Now, areas where it's an already built out community that's aging and is going to get a zhizhing up, those values will go up. So you have to understand if people are making an existing community better, the values go up. But when there's more competition with an existing community and new construction, then these values shake for about a year.
Huh.
So
Interesting. So how could you take advantage of something like that?
well, you got to know where you're going. So are you trying to buy in an older neighborhood, or are you trying to buy in a newer neighborhood? So if you're in an older neighborhood and it gets easier to develop, then you're going to be in a win, and you're going to want to either buy a fixer in an older neighborhood, or if you're wanting to buy new construction, then you're going to want to buy in the new construction. If you're a seller who knows new construction is coming near you, you sell before it gets built, because it will be competition, I guarantee you. And if you're a seller who's in an older neighborhood and you find out that restrictions are lifted and you have a fixer, then that might be a good marketing piece for you or your agent to make sure that's in all of your marketing that, hey, it's going to be easier to redevelop here.
So either way, it sounds like there's a way to take advantage. You just have to know which direction you're going with.
Exactly.
Great stuff. Well, only time will tell what the true Trump effect will be, but that's great wisdom. Thank you so much for coming, Elizabeth. Great to see you again. The champ, Elizabeth Story. Stick around for more Smarter San Diego TV, where we guarantee to make you smarter than everyone else. Commercial free.
Our most patriotic guest is back, and you better believe he has something to say about our most recent election. Please welcome back former Navy SEAL, Andrew Paul.
Andrew Paul, what's up, dude?
Hey, man. Good to see you.
Good to see you too, brother. A lot going on in the world these days. A lot of people want to know what you think. Over 15,000 fans now on Facebook.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's growing quick.
Pretty wild.
Yeah.
A lot of like-minded individuals out there, people who want to protect the Second Amendment, et cetera. Obviously, with the recent election, I think that was sort of proven. That was one of the big things for Trump, was the NRA's the immediate endorsement from the NRA.
Yeah.
And I think that worked out well for him.
Well, this election for me was less about who was going to win, as a candidate, like less about Trump or Hillary per se, and more about the Supreme Court. Because with Scalia's death earlier this year, we've now got 8 Supreme Court justices, and the winner of this election will appoint one Supreme Court justice, likely a second. Ruth Bader Ginsburg is getting up there, and possibly Kennedy and Beyer. So there's a possibility that Trump now will appoint 4 Supreme Court justices in his term. It's possible.
At least one for sure.
At least one for sure.
Probably 2.
Probably a second, and possibly a third and a fourth. That's huge. because of the way California and New York in particular have been so just adamant about eroding away the Second Amendment, which to me is a critical liberty.
Yeah, it's a critical liberty. That and the element of, the rights of unborn children is another big one that's out there and has been, and there's lots of different things that go along with that, but Second Amendment definitely under attack from every angle in some of these areas.
That's the big one for me.
Yeah.
The First Amendment, the right to free speech, religion, to assemble, those are all idealistically extremely important. But practically speaking, it's the Second Amendment that protects the First.
That's true. Very, very true. Yeah. And we're seeing the First Amendment being exercised quite a bit since the election. Yeah. There's been a lot of protesting going on, especially in New York City. I was actually in New York City for a different reason and got to go right into the belly of that thing 2 days in a row.
Yeah.
I interviewed people, and the second time I just sat back, and there was already a confrontation going on between Trump supporters and protesters. That's obviously a very important right, because that's a reflection of the First Amendment without question, right?
To assemble peacefully.
Yeah, yeah. And assuming that's happening, of course, it's a big assumption, but if we can assume that that's the case, you have to look at people who are out there and who are assembling and say, okay, good, that's part of America.
I have no problem with it.
There is a problem, though, once it stops being peaceful.
Correct. It also, I have no problem with it because as a human being, as an essential liberty, you should have the right to express yourself and to address your government and to express your frustration or disapproval with the way things are going. And so that's why the First Amendment is so essential. Go ahead, get it out of your system, go protest. But remember, when you're standing there protesting, you're not actually doing anything. So it's not really fruitful. You may be blowing off some steam. So to the extent that that makes you feel better, go ahead, get it out of your system. But if you really want to make a difference, put down the pickup line, put down the picket sign, so to speak, and pick up an application or go apply for a job in a role where you can make a difference.
Yeah, which is something that people should really be thinking about right now. There are a lot of people who are not happy, let's be honest, about the outcome of the election.
Sure.
Especially in bigger cities, and some of these what we call sanctuary cities for illegal immigrants and things like that, which to me, I think the wall, one of the biggest things for me was the wall, securing the border. It's just wide open, has been for a long time. We've got up to 30 million now illegal immigrants in the country. 2 to 3 million of them are known criminals. And Trump wants to get those guys out of here right away, first thing.
Yeah.
So to me, that was a big deal. But for a lot of folks, I think they believe that there are people who will be persecuted here who don't deserve it.
Sure.
I think there's a lot of misinformation.
Right. And there's some fear there, which I can appreciate and empathize with. But at the same time, when we say we have a problem with illegal immigration, the operative word is illegal. That's the operative word. Illegal. We are a nation, and always have been, a nation of immigrants. And in order for our country to continue to grow, to bring in new talent, we have to be a country that continues to be a nation of immigrants and to welcome people to the land of opportunity. Because I still believe America is the greatest country on earth. It's the greatest opportunity. And so people want to come and be a part of that. But we want them to come to be a part of it. And there's a process for that so that those people can come, they can become citizens, they can get a job, have a social security number, and ultimately be taxed just like the rest of us so that they can contribute financially to the system and then benefit from the services that they contribute to help pay for. One of the big problems with illegal immigrations, again, first of all, it's illegal. It isn't that we don't want to welcome people. We welcome people, but follow the process, follow the law. That's the issue. But come, make a contribution, pay taxes, contribute just like the rest of us, and love to have you.
Even if you don't want to be a citizen, you can still legally come here if you do it the right way.
Correct.
Stay for 5-10 years.
Get
or
a
whatever
work visa, etc. Sure.
Go back
to
wherever you came from. You can do that totally legally.
Right.
But that's the biggest issue, is that has not been done legally
Yep.
for a very long time. The people who did go through the process legally are extremely frustrated by the fact that so many people are not going through the process.
How unfair is that to somebody who follows the rules? They go through the process, they become contributing members of our society, and everybody else, all these other guys get a free pass. I mean, that's an insult to the people who respect and follow the laws. If you don't agree with the law, get involved and let's figure out a way to change the law if the way it's designed right now doesn't work. And that's a different debate. That's a different debate. Is the system and the process that we have effective or efficient? Different discussion. The point right now is it's illegal. So if you start by saying, well, we're going to just turn a blind eye to that, we're just going to be a sanctuary city, so do we get to now just pick and choose which laws we will and won't follow? I mean, that's a slippery slope.
Big time. It's mob mentality. What you're saying is, well, if enough people break the law, then we just won't enforce it. That's a big time statement to make as a country, and that's the statement that's been made so far. Well, there's so many.
Yeah.
And so how are we going to deal with all these people? Well, we're just going to keep letting them come in.
One person at a time.
That's right.
How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. Somebody out there will now accuse me of being a racist because I'm likening immigrants to elephants, but hey, you know what? That's just wrong.
Well, you know, if you don't fall in line, Andrew, then you will be called a lot of names, as I have been. As I saw many people, you know, being down there in the protests in New York City, the day after the election and then 2 days after the election, I heard anyone who was wearing, you know, Trump gear or who wasn't falling in line, I heard them called every name that you can think of.
Yeah. You know, maybe it should be a new part of like SEAL training, is that you should have to go to New York City, put on Trump garb, and run from one end of Manhattan to the other. And if you make it to the other side without a police escort and survive, you're in.
You know, it's funny because I was definitely undercover.
Yeah.
And so I was just there with a camera. I wanted people to be able to see what was really going on. I didn't know how the news was covering it at the time.
Right.
Had no idea. Just wanted people to see from
so
my perspective.
So you're a closet Trump voter.
I'm not really closet.
Yeah.
I'm pretty out there.
We're going to talk about closet, though.
Okay.
We're going to talk about that closet.
Let's talk about it.
So everybody's surprised about the result of the election, right? There's two things I want to talk about why everybody was so surprised. First of all, unrelated to the result of the election itself. So all politics aside, doesn't matter if you're voting for Clinton or Trump or whatever, it's a tremendous surprise. It's the greatest upset in our lifetime, Derek, in a presidential race. Why? The pundits got it wrong, the pollsters, the odds makers, the commentators, the media, with the exception of a handful of people who were considered fringe. Nobody thought Trump had a prayer. And you see all the videos out there now. Hillary by a landslide, right? Heck, they called California at 4 o'clock. I hadn't even left the office yet. I was like, are you serious? Why even bother? I mean, California's right. But why is it that everybody said Hillary by a landslide, Trump hasn't got a prayer? The reason is because the left, which is the media, which is mostly the left, has a left leaning. It does. They began to associate Trump and Trump supporters and then shaming Trump supporters as being racist, sexist, misogynist. And that was the approach they took. So people would say, are you voting for Trump, you sexist, you know, or you must be a racist if you support Trump. That became the mantra of many people on the left, including the media. So what happened? Well, if you agree with what Trump is saying, and you're not a sexist or a racist, God forbid be labeled or called one, you're just going to keep your mouth shut. And that's what happened. They drove everybody to the closet. And so then when they were polling people, their data was just simply wrong. So here's the lesson for a business, for a husband, a father, a mother. You want to know what's going on with your kids? You want to know what's going on in the marketplace? You want to know what's going on with your business, with your relationships, or what's going on with the election? You have to invite open and honest communication without berating and belittling the other side. And you have to let others share their opinion without fear of retribution. Otherwise, you don't get an honest answer. And then you don't get to know what's really going on. And that's why it's the greatest upset in our lifetime in a presidential election. So I would just encourage people to soften their tone and stop name calling and really using heavy words like racist, sexist, fascist, misogynist, etc. with somebody because they're voting for a different political candidate. That's not right. That in itself is a form of the same thing, whether it be racism or sexism. It's lumping everybody into one bucket. If you vote for Trump, you're a sexist. Well, that's just not true. So people keep their mouth shut.
Not true at all. In fact, I would argue that Trump is not sexist, and I could give you many, many examples, including his campaign manager, who was a woman.
Right.
He trusted his entire presidential campaign, which he spent tens of millions of his own dollars on, and tons of his own 2 years of his own time. He's not going to entrust that to someone who he believes is beneath someone else. He's going to find the absolute best possible person.
That's right.
He believed Kellyanne Conway was that person. He was correct.
Great.
You know, the national spokesperson for the Trump campaign was also Katrina Pearson, who is a black woman. So there, for all the people who think he's racist.
And where is that? Why is the media and the public not lifting those two incredible women up for the great job that they've done?
Yeah, did an amazing job. Won a huge campaign, the biggest upset in
because it
United
doesn't
States
fit
politics.
the narrative. And the mind does that. The people, weak minds do that. They lump people into a category because it makes it easier for the brain to process. I've seen it in combat, but that is that's weak. The reality is that people and humans are more complex than that. War is more complex than that. Politics and relationships are more complex than that. It's gray. It's not black and white. It's not Republican and Democrat. It's not my candidate, your candidate. I win, you lose. That's the wrong mentality, and that's a big problem I see right now too. Is it creates this competition in the presidential race of my candidate against your candidate, and now we're competing against each other, and it becomes vicious. And the reality is, remember, we're all voting for America. We may differ on some of the policies, and that's what politics is all about, which I don't have a stomach for. What I do have a stomach for, what I am passionate about, though, is bringing people together, bringing a team together to accomplish a goal. And, you know, this is not to pick a side, but let's make America great. I mean, I think Republican or Democrat, maybe if you're a Democrat, your stomach turns thinking about using this term now, but what's wrong with making America great? Don't you also want to make America great? We may differ on some of the policies, but, you know, the calls I hear now of people, you know, hoping that this is, you know, or accusing Trump of being a disaster, and he's already, you know, filling his cabinet with the very creatures that he found when he drained the swamp, that kind of, you know, rhetoric like that. You know, it just reeks of people who are not really interested in making America all that she can be. And hoping for Trump to fail, I said to somebody, hoping for Trump to fail is like being on a 747 and being pissed at the pilot because he slept with your wife and hoping he crashes the plane. Remember, you're on that plane too, buddy.
Very, very true. And I think that one of the things that we've noticed is that it seems as if some of the people who we would call Trump haters are more interested in being right. In other words, hoping that he fails. They're more interested in being right than the outcome of the country.
Right.
And what's happening for the country. That's the problem I have, because it's a serious lack of patriotism. It's very selfish. I mean, he won. It's over.
Right.
No one's contesting this. It was an ass kicking. I mean, he really...
Yeah, it wasn't close.
It was not close.
Right.
Not even close. And people are talking about the popular vote and this and that.
Thank God for the Electoral College vote, because I, for one, don't want California and New York City deciding what's best for the rest of the freaking country.
Right. Well, keep in mind, if there wasn't an Electoral College, Trump would have campaigned in California, he would have campaigned in New York, and he would have won by an even bigger margin than he did win. He didn't even go there.
Right. What's the point?
Didn't even go.
Right.
Because you're not going to get 55 electoral votes in California are already gone at the start. Correct. Of this whole thing. And that's the biggest advantage that the blue staters have in these elections with the Electoral College. So for them to think that it's unfair, you're right, it is, because 55-0 when we get started. So he would have campaigned in California all over the state. Would have got tons and tons of votes there, and same thing in New York. Yep. Didn't go. So to complain about that after the fact is ridiculous.
Right. It reeks of sour grapes is what it sounds like.
Yeah.
The problem is the binary decision. People, I think, take the binary decision of Clinton or Trump. Trump winning is in some way a referendum that everyone who voted for Clinton is just wrong about everything. Or if Hillary had won, that would have somehow been a referendum that anything that Trump said is completely wrong. And neither of those statements are correct. The reality is that it's somewhere in the middle. But one candidate has to win. In this case, it's Trump. But the reality is that for him to be a good leader now, it's not going to be all the Trump train all the way, because keep in mind, what the popular vote is reflective of is a very close decision. I mean, less than 1% difference in total votes for either candidate. We're basically a split nation. That means you can't go voting all in one direction. There's going to be compromise. There has to be. And remember, by the way, we didn't just elect a king. Whether it had been Hillary that was going to win or Trump who won, in neither case, we don't elect a king in this country. The president does not have unilateral power to do anything and everything, right? Luckily, we've got a distribution of power. We've got a bicameral legislature. Congress passes laws. Presidents, appoint justices, which in this case, I am very grateful for. I believe over the next 2 to 3 years, we are going to see a lot of policies that trample the Second Amendment, enacted primarily in states like California and New York. I think they will be tested at the Supreme Court level, and I think they will be unilaterally overturned.
That would be nice to see. I saw one of those fake news stories. You're seeing a lot of those come out now.
Yeah, God, they're hilarious.
And they're
the duffel bag ones are some of my favorites, man. The duffel bag, check it out.
There was one that was, the headline was Trump's first order of actions to make concealed carry national law, or something like that.
Right.
I got excited for a second.
Yeah.
I read it and then that's BS. So I do think what you'll see, as I know some U.S. Marshals. Mm-hmm. And one of the things I did not know about the U.S. Marshals is that there are 95 regions, essentially, or hubs for the U.S. Marshals in the United States. The director, or the head of all of those hubs, is directly appointed by the President of the United States.
Oh, interesting.
I had no idea.
Yeah.
Things haven't been going well the last 8 years.
Yeah.
So, as they were saying, when you move into the presidency, and I didn't know this until this year, there's over 4,500 appointments that they have to make.
Yeah.
And now I'm starting to know, okay, this is what those appointments are. They're really important.
Yep.
I mean, you're talking about appointing all the heads of all of those U.S. Marshals offices.
And those are the people who are now going to actually enact the policy where the rubber meets the road. I mean, Congress sets the law, but the application of that law at the ground level is in offices that are run by appointees, people who are appointed by the president.
Correct.
So, I mean, there's a tremendous amount of power. But the president doesn't make law. Congress makes law. Now, in this particular case, the Republicans have handedly won with a Republican president, a Republican House and Congress, and we'll likely see a very conservative Supreme Court over the next couple years, a strong shift, I suspect. And the only thing that I really care about, for me, is the preservation of the Second Amendment. And I really believe that that's going to secure our Second Amendment now for a generation or more. And I had fears that if Hillary had won, I for one, by the way, I mean, I'll just admit it, I thought I was convinced she was going to win by a landslide. And I thought, wow, it's sad because I can see the end of the Second Amendment as I know it, which is it was a horrible thought. It's such an essential liberty.
We were texting on election night as things were unfolding, and I know I was out on a limb, the week leading up to the election, and calling a Trump victory and making bets with people that we were going to take this. But I was watching the rallies, and I was just looking at the rallies. They were so big. I mean, the night before the election in Michigan, they had 25,000 people at a rally that they had less than 24 hours announced that they were going to do. That just doesn't look like second place, man.
Right.
Just didn't look like second place.
Yeah.
And when you're thinking Michigan is in play, and some of these other polls are razor sharp, but the one poll that was actually correct really was the LA Times poll, where they had Trump up 6 or 7 points.
Oh wow!
And that was the one that when I started seeing, because the LA Times is pretty far on the other side.
Yeah.
I think, man, they're probably not doctoring that one up. The rest of them I don't know about.
Yeah.
But that one.
Why would the LA Times doctor up something to show Trump up 6%? You know, all these things, Derek, are, you know, I'm not a fan of politics. It's just what I care about is liberty, and that's why the Second Amendment is an essential liberty to me. I think it is the liberty that secures the First Amendment, and so that's what's important to me is liberty. And so I'm voting ultimately for the person who is for smaller government and the person who is going to enhance and increase liberty for the individual, not increase the size of the government that can then take away liberty from the individual. You know, going into the election, Derek, I mean, I thought for one Hillary was going to win by a landslide. I was surprised pleasantly that Trump won because I believe he's going to do more to secure individual liberties and keep the size of government small. That's just what I think. I mean, time will tell. Regardless, in life is ups and downs, and that's just the way it is. And, you know, they say that the mountain were smooth, you couldn't climb it. And right now, if you are a staunch Hillary supporter, or you're on the left, you're upset right now. But this protesting, this skipping of class, this universities allowing students to not take their final exams, that's just the wrong message, man. Life is not like that. Through adversity, through defeat, if that's what you want to call it, through loss, you still have to perform. You still have to show up the next day and do the best that you can. These kids who are walking out of high school, they're going to have a real hard time in life because life doesn't care. Life's going to knock you down, and you don't get to just say, I'm not going to participate. I mean, I guess you can, but that's how you lose ultimately. I would encourage anybody right now who feels frustrated that the answer is not crying and whining or calling foul. The answer is to get involved and to make a difference. Even if you getting involved to make a difference is contrary to what I believe is the right way to govern, I would just tell you that I have a whole lot more respect for you to just have an intelligent conversation rather than whining and crying about it. I didn't whine and cry when Obamacare was passed. I mean, I wasn't happy about it, but I didn't not show up to work the next day. You got to show up to work, you know? You can't just quit and give up. So dig in and make a difference. That's what a real winner is going to do. And I respect that, even if the decision, even if what it is you're advocating for is different than my opinion.
Very well said, my friend. In fact, if you don't like what's happening, even though your vote has already been cast and the election is over, the one vote that you get that never goes away, you can pick up the phone and call your congressman. You can pick up the phone and call your senator. If there are policies coming down the pike that you don't like or bills that are being introduced, pick up the phone, call somebody, and tell them what you think. In fact, if you don't even like to pick up the phone, which a lot of people don't these days, send an email to these guys. Let them know what you think. That's how you can always participate, not just once every 4 years. You can participate every single day in every single thing that's going on if you really want to.
You know, another thing I think is really important, Derek, is, you know, we live in Southern California, and so it's pretty strong to the left. Like I said, the day of the election, they called California at like 4 o'clock. I hadn't even left the office yet. It's kind of funny. And now that Hillary lost, I mean, most people around us are very upset. They're protesting. I'm seeing all kinds of things being said on Facebook. I would just like to say that I think we all need to just rise above that. I have a tremendous amount of respect for a lot of professionals in my industry who are on different sides of the aisle than me, if you want to put it that way, politically. But I can have a great, intelligent conversation. And I think that's what makes us better, is when we can have an intelligent conversation, even if we have a different opinion. But the name calling and the whining and the complaining doesn't solve anything. You're really just a waste of time and energy. So I would just say, hey, let's figure out a way to make this country great, even if we have differing opinions. In fact, when we have a different opinion and we can talk intelligently and respectfully towards one another, that actually creates a hybrid outcome that's probably better than had we all just had the same opinion, right? When we look at problems and solve them from a different angle because we think differently, I think it creates a more robust solution. So let's look at that as a strength of the way our country is divided up. But as long as we can come together and intelligently put policies together that are reflective of both sides, rather than being just totally one-sided. But arguing and crying and complaining doesn't solve it. I have a lot of respect for people who have a different opinion than me. And the reason I have so much respect for them is because I can have an intelligent conversation with them, even if our opinions are different.
Very well said, my friend. Andrew Paul, great to see you.
Great to see you, man.
Fantastic stuff.
Thanks.
Stick around for more Smarter San Diego TV, where we guarantee to make you smarter than everyone else. Commercial free.
Hello, San Diego. I hope you're enjoying a lovely Thanksgiving break. And now that the holidays are in full swing, I'm here in Julian to find out from people why they're thankful and ways that they can give back to the community this season. Let's check it out. So what are you thankful for this year?
We're thankful for God, and we're thankful for our family. And we're thankful for Julian.
I'm thankful for my family and the holiday season because it brings everyone together and everyone seems to make that little extra effort.
Thankful for God, first of all. Thankful for family. Thankful for my husband.
We met in Mazatlan, Mexico on vacation 30 years ago. I lived 1,000 miles away from her and I was so happy we met. It's been 32 years now. So we're thankful for a wonderful, happy marriage.
I'm extremely thankful for the beautiful weather that we have right now in Southern California.
I'm thankful for kids of our own and being able to pass the heritage.
The trees changing color up here in Julian is just outstanding.
Apple pie.
Are there any ways that you like to give back to the community?
Yes, Camp Pendleton. I'm involved in the ball gown giveaway program for the gals.
Anything that has to do with women and children.
I really like to volunteer at animal shelters because I feel like it's rewarding and I love animals. I love dogs. Oh my gosh, I love dogs. And they just make people happy, so why not spend the time there making them happy?
Bread of Life Oceanside soup kitchen, I guess you call it, for the homeless. It's a real privilege.
I like to try to donate to those in need whenever I can.
So for me, I'm thankful for my friends and my family, of course. I'm thankful to have an awesome job and a great career path. It's very rewarding. I'm thankful to have a roof over my head and food on the table every day. Speaking of food on the table, I'm gonna go home and enjoy me some apple pie. Feel free to share things that you're thankful for and ways that you like to give back to the community in the comments below.
Hey, great show, guys. That's a wrap. Jade, what's your schedule look like? Do you mind breaking down the set?
Not today, Derek. I'd love to, but there's waves out there. I gotta go.
No, I can't either. I'm starting to get hangry and have way too much stuff to do today. Claudia, you've got this, right?
Sure, guys. I would love to. I'll get right to work.